Good afternoon, and wherever you are on this wide, wonderful, beautiful world, you are very welcome to the Soft and System Size 2 Sales with my good friend Shay Lynch on my left and on his right. I got it correct today. And we're talking today about cultivating sales leaders for the future and helping people learn and grow with that. So, be another exciting edition. Hey, welcome back, Shay. Good to see you again. Always exciting to do these weekly events. And I tell you why this is really good. And it's probably quite personal for us because it's all about finding and nurturing the next leaders going on beyond and then giving back and also helping people learn and grow, making sure that we pick the right people, making sure that we can inspire the next generation of leaders that can actually take it on. So it's quite a humble process, really, and it really can give back to, uh, you know, make people learn and grow, but self-develop, and it's all about that. It's all about giving back. So when we look at people within our teams, whether it's from our sales teams or whether it's from anywhere else in the business, interesting to see how can we spot talent when we see it, because there are so many talented people out there, but what are the specific things that we look for when we look for that next generation?
Absolutely, Jason. And what I always like to say that this is a general comment. It's not just related to sales,
Yeah,
but I believe it's important to say there's many roles when you're a leader. There's many caps you have to wear.
yeah,
One of them, and I mean one of the most important one, is to create future leaders. As you
yeah,
said, that future generation. And the reason why I call this out, Jason, is because I've often seen many examples in large industries, public figures that are great on the external side,
yeah,
building strategy, visions, businesses, acquisitions, you name it, everything. But they forget about the people underneath,
yep,
right? And I believe that's always a mistake because you have to focus. As you said, they're the future generation of the business.
yeah,
And
absolutely.
if you don't nurture and grow and develop them, you've lost your succession planning because they'll leave and go elsewhere.
Yeah,
Number one. But you need to invigorate them to do better and be better. And you do that by nurturing, growing, and leading by example. So now bring it into the framework of sales, where I believe, again, it's even more so important, Jason, because sales are the lifeblood of any
yep,
business,
they are.
right? That's without a shadow of a doubt. So you want to make sure your team are highly engaged, they're highly motivated, and they believe they're valued. And you're going to develop and nurture and grow them as you go. And in the world we live in now, Jason, right? I call it the retention revolution. You have to understand what it takes to, as you say, to first of all, spot top talent and make sure they're part of that succession planning. You're building those journeys all the way to the end so they stay and grow.
Curious enough, really, because maybe I just probably a sweeping generalization here. There's so many people that job hop between industries and companies, and it's a quite a challenge for leaders for them to do that, especially like the big or corporates out there. They just see the shining objects and they go, oh, there's more money over there and there's more over there, but maybe they're not thinking about the big picture. Whereas back in the day, I'm not saying whether it's myself or whatever, but you see other generations that they're in an organization almost for life or 10 years or whatever before they think about moving somewhere else. So succession planning is just so very important. And it's so very important to nurture those leaders and develop people at an early age. But you also got to find, regardless of package and regardless of bonuses and what else might be within what the people want, but it's growth is another intrinsic motivator to actually going, well, here's a career path for you. We're going to design it for you or help you get to where you need to be going. But I'm not going to give it away for free. You have to work so bloody hard at it. I don't care whether you got degrees coming out of your ear rolls or whatever it might be. I want you to work hard from a level, wherever that level might be. But I want you to work hard to make sure that you earn it with respect rather than being given it from education, because education is good, but actually learning it from the actual business as opposed to theoretical business. There's a slightly different concept and context behind that to make sure that they learn what the pyramid of the business might actually be, so they can actually have a complete overview of the business and really understand other metrics of the business. And I know we've spoken about this before, understanding what goes on in accounts, understand what goes on in marketing, get a like a 360 view, but it has to be down to the person to want to have it as opposed to there you go.
Yeah. Guess what? I do, Jason. And guess what? This is another part of the equation where people forget. Only hire people that you believe have that attitude and have those values and principles that can grow with the business. Because it all starts from there. If you hire rubbish, guess what? You're stuck with them. It's your fault, not theirs. Right. So that's why these journeys start before they join the company. You have to create very interesting roles, right? Roles that are impactful to the business, roles that, and when you're developing a role, what I always say, Jason, and I just wrote a paper on this during the week or an article about the importance of sharing your brand values, principles when you're going to hire people, because you want to make sure people are interested in those. And here's the other part of the equation. You have to make sure you abide and live by those principles too, right? So it's important to find the people that have the right attitude, that complement the values and principles that you have built within the business, and they're a good fit. They're proactive, great attitude to learn. And then your role as a leader, stroke, possibly mentor, you're to bring them on that journey. You can't just expect. And I worked with a team before, Jason. It's a really good example. They headhunted this guy who was making all sorts of great shapes in another industry. They brought this guy in and he wasn't doing very well. They were thinking of not renewing his contract or giving him, he had 6 months probation. They were thinking of not giving it to him. And I said, why is that? Well, he hasn't performed. Why hasn't he performed? Did you just throw him out to the wolves? Yeah. So you didn't train him your best way. Like, you're a sales director. You've been through this journey. You know this industry very well. You know what works best here in this industry. What have you done to impart that knowledge? Nothing. So tell me, why is it his fault he hasn't done well, right? And I always say, train them before you blame them.
Yep.
And then we created a mechanism. How do you sell in this industry? What's the best way to sell in this business? How do you abide by the principles of this business and it be integral when you sell? And then we built the mechanism, and he did perform, but it took time. But it took that. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way relationship to build, Jason. You can't just hire them and play the ostrich syndrome, throw your head in the sand, and then hope for the best, right?
I see that far too often.
Yeah.
And it is a recurring theme within mid-sized businesses to actually do that. They hire in and they see these shiny objects about, they've been performing there, and then they bring it into a slightly different, but they don't train them up in the way that it should be done. So the onboarding process is slightly different, and they should get a mentor, a buddy, someone else to bring them along. It does depend on the size of the organization. Some the smaller organizations of 100 people or whatever, probably don't have that infrastructure to do that onboarding process in the way it should be done properly. And there should be someone within the organizations to map this out. And whether it's with the sales team, whether it's with the marketing team, to have, well, this is what you should be doing, design it when you invest all this time and effort. And it does cost a lot of money to employ someone. And it's not a cheap thing, because you have to pay recruiters, you have to pay everything else, like online advertising and whatever else. And it's time and effort out of the business. So that costs huge amounts of money. And when you get it wrong, you blame someone else as opposed to blaming your process.
That's it, Jason. And that's a very important call out. So if you think about it, you've got the recruitment process. You're about attracting the right type of talent to your business. Then you hire. Then there's an onboarding journey, right? That should be 6 months, right? What do you do? And it should be mapped out week one. And depending on the size of the team business, it could be day one of week one, day two, and so forth. And then after week one, you go, right, okay, what do we want to do month one, month two, month three? And it's a two-way street. And this starts with a skills assessment, a gap analysis of, well, what do we believe he's good at or she's good at? What do they think about this? And then what are the skills they need? Where's the gaps? Where's the best place to start training them? It should be unique. And then, as you said, bring in the leadership element. Well, how are we going to bring them, coach them, and mentor them along that journey to make sure they're fully loaded with support and they get off the ground running as effectively as possible? They're not going to get results straight away, but you want to get them up to speed as effectively as possible without rushing it.
Yeah, absolutely. So talent comes from different shapes and forms and sizes. And I think the large corporates, they probably just went, we're going to go university focused. And that will change. And then they looked and went, well, we need to spread our wings a little bit more because we want to grow, we want to scale. But some of the people from the universities are just not performing. Why is that? Okay, we did a 12 stage interview. Oh, yeah, they did that. They're highly educated, highly smart. But they don't have that spark, that sparkle of that intrinsic motivation to actually want to achieve and have that human skills, that human element to actually communicate effectively at all levels. So they had to branch it out, and they discovered that the attributes, what they thought they were looking for, doesn't match to the growth and the scale of the company. Plus, shaping those leaders for the future and finding the right people that had that right mental attitude, the mindset, that also is self-discovery, but they can communicate and they can actually motivate others because they've got that essential piece of IQ and maybe that organization skills that other people might not have. So having that as a set criteria when you do actually employ the right people makes a massive difference. But I think you have to interview them on multiple levels. And again, there could be different people speaking to them because there is a bit of confirmation bias. If I'm a sales leader interviewing you, Shay, I have that confirmation bias. We're the same. We both like to run. We get on with each other. Blah blah blah. Shay, you're hired. But what we have to now think about is get the marketing person to interview you, then get some colleagues to interview you as well to see how, and then we can make a rational decision about, Shay's the right person for this, and we can actually see him grow, rather than me being like, hey Shay, how it used to be. You're hired, you're into mountain running like me, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, the same principle, but not looking at the big picture.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. And then you mentioned an important part there as well. Now that they've onboarded, right, and you mentioned succession planning, right? So as a leader then, you have to then, say if you have a team of 10, right? And obviously, as you go up the ranks, there's less and less places, Jason, right?
Of course.
But it's really important of that 10, which are the 2 to 3 that can become the future sales leader. You have to start identifying your top talent and then bring them on another journey. So you've onboarded them, they get settled. You still keep an eye, you still do your performance and your professional development with them, make sure they're doing all that. And then it's going, well, next steps, careers. What do they want to get out of the business? Some people want to go up the journey, up the ranks. Other people just want to become an SME.
Yep.
And so finding like a bespoke career journey for these people. And then, as I said, some of them could be like filtered on top of with a succession. These are the people we've identified as really strong top talent that we want to bring along the journey of leadership for the future. And how do we do that? And like the way it is, Jason, this sounds all maybe complicated, right? But it's not, right? This is about building really good relationships, open and honest, create those safe places where you have a trusting relationship where you can be open and honest with each other. And then seeing, are you happy? If not, what can we do differently? And then support them on that, right? If it means leaving the company, that's fine too. You get in other people that fit the culture, the business. It's all about, and you will. And then the other journey is offboarding. It's so important, Jason, to make sure you've got a team of people that complement your values and the business values. If there's anyone on that, you have to ask, why are they here? Because you have to, if you're keeping people that are not performing, you're really the real loss is not that they're not performing, Jason, is they've taken up space where somebody could be really, so it's a double hit.
Yep.
Instead of just going from low to break even or like acceptable, they're down here and this is where you expect them. You could have someone up here, right? And that's really important. So it's a double gap. So that's the real loss, right?
We've just had from Jane, great discussion. Soft skills don't always transfer seamlessly. Huge consideration given to those in situations having to adjust to new colleagues, leaders, as well as new recruits to fit new environment. This is where the external help coaching really helps. I completely concur with that. It's impact external coaching, or whether the leaders can nurture those teams and to coach them. Ironically enough, last week I did a coaching course for leaders, and they were pretty high up. But distinction between what's a coach and a mentor is two different things, and they didn't know the difference. So had to enable them for that. So in order for them to help their teams now and nurture their teams, they either have to be in mentor mode where they sit and discuss the challenges and whatever it might be with their team and decipher how they can grow them and give them partake knowledge for succession planning for their growth, or you can coach them on specific needs based on what their requirements actually are. So whether that is education, whether it is that you self-discover, said like you find out from them, I really want to grow, I really want to learn about different facets of the business. Excellent. Well, I can help you there. So those coaching moments make a big impact from the leader. Then you can actually go, well, they're going to match what we were looking for because they're self-discovering themselves and they had that motivation to want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. And then the other dimension, I think what Jane is referring to is external. And again, I mentioned the word safe space earlier on. Even though you may create that safe space internally, some people still aren't feel comfortable sharing truthful information or how they truly feel because they don't want to be a sort of a non-player, right? Yeah. But if they have an external, there's no biases, there's nothing in play where they can speak freely and get absolutely upfront and honest with their coach, and then the coach can be absolutely truly helpful and create a super space for growth. And more so than because I think what Jane is trying to say is that if it's within the company, sometimes you can't be that truthful.
Yeah, I completely concur, and I've seen it. But the coaching, if it does happen and there is change in the organization, I understand that sometimes you feel challenged because they're your boss. You get inferiority complex because you feel like they're my boss and I can't speak with them for whatever reasons that go on inside of our brains that we talk to ourselves in a self-doubt way. in a really good way. I've witnessed that in other places that you can speak to your boss, and they have psychological safety. It does depend on the individual, though, whether you have that area of trust, whether you have that area of going, well, I can actually call them and have, rather than speaking about business, I can talk to them about other things, and that gives that true connection. But I do concur in the smaller business worlds. Sometimes external coaches come in and help you learn and grow. I've had an external coach. It's only me, myself, and I. But in an organization where I've coached other people, I'm coming from the outside in. And then I just say, look, this is how we do it. It is a safe space. You say what you like, when you like. It's not going to go anywhere else. I suppose when you're speaking to a leader within an organization, you're not sure whether they're measuring you or thinking about other situations because they have someone else that they report into. And it is that area of trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just reverting back to the soft skills, like when it comes to sales, like I believe soft skills are valuable no matter what you do, right?
Absolutely.
And I always say there's probably 3 levels to that. Becoming the best version of you for you, right? The skills around that. And then be the best version of you for your colleagues and who you communicate with. All your communicative, building rapport, building trust, and Cialdini's 7 principles of trust, all those different ones, right?
It's
Soft
influence.
side, right? But
It's influence.
Influence. Well, it's the same thing. Influence and persuasion. Yeah. Right. And but the whole point is like building those soft skills in sales, right? You have to communicate, learn. I always say in sales, you have to go from likable to trust in a very short space of time, right? People will meet you if they like you.
Yep.
And then you have a finite amount of chances to go from like to trust for them to trust you enough to give you a chance at your first sale. And then after that, it's up to you to build on that as well. So you have to create that environment, and you do that by having really strong soft skills, right? Really good building rapport, going from rapport to building a relationship good enough to give it a try. That takes practice, right? Some people are natural with it. We all have those 7 principles, right, of influence, for example. We're all good at different ones naturally. We're not always good at everything. So it's about what are the ones we need to learn to make us more rounded to support growth for ourselves, but growth for building relationships with potential customers.
So there is the external stuff, which is the soft skills, but we also need the soft skills to be for succession planning. So for the leaders to look in to us to notice what they're doing with their customers and how they treat their customers, and then how they treat their team members as well as, and how they support their team members. Because if they're seeing someone to go, well, they're really good at helping their team as well. And I might have mentioned it already, but they're really good at inspiring others and educating their team on other areas as well as. So for me to look down and go, well, I can see them nurturing their own skills and they're really good at their own soft skills, because when you're a leader, you have to have key stakeholder management skills as well, which is another level. And speaking to the other directors, the other leaders within the organization, and seeing the whole architecture of the business, but also seeing revenue coming in and what you need to do to monitor that. So I think you have to mentor them. You have to partake of knowledge. You have to make sure that you have the right soft skills and they have the right soft skills. Maybe they might be challenging you as a leader, which might be quite good in a way, because they might be seeing a different opportunity coming in, which could be a soft skill in itself.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Jason. So this is for me the final piece. So we talked about nurturing and growing them. We talked about the soft skills. Then we talked about succession planning. Then how do you define this word leadership in the new world? Right. So what are the different skill sets from a sales leadership perspective, right? Which I believe are pretty much up there with the actual leader of the business, right? Building the visions and the strategy, right? because the sales leader has to be very much involved in this equation. And in fact, they really need to see around corners. Things change so much at the moment. So it's important to be very proactive in what's coming next, learning, taking measurements, understanding what the marketplace and your customers are dishing at you. What's the information coming back and what can you do about it? It's all about building the right data to make these decisions. So, from how do you develop the future leader, right? For sales, you have to have all these skills on the outside.
Mhm.
Been able to take all this market intelligence, right, and then act on it with confidence. And then what part of that action is bringing that communication or bringing and communicating that message to your teams,
Mhm.
getting them to buy into it. You all build it together and work together. It's not about you dictating this is what we're going to do. So what does this mean to us? What do we need to do next? Build a roadmap together so everybody is involved. And a big part of a leader is to understand, well, if the business wants to succeed, the people in the business have to succeed too. It can't be they're not exclusive, they're conjoined. And they
Mm.
have to leaders have to recognize this. I need to bring them on the journey with us.
Yep. And it is that, absolutely, bringing everyone on the journey, because that's how motivation works. They might get more inspired and then they get more excited to actually want to sell the products and services that you actually have, but they can maybe see different outcomes of the business. And that's where the leader, or this is how the leaders should actually be able to see, is change is possible with the right person in place that could succession and understand where growth might actually be and the potential of the business, and is gutsy enough to take risks. Like a proper salesperson is gutsy enough to take risks anyway. But once you're into a leadership position, you've got to be gutsy enough to actually influence the rest of the business, saying, we need to slightly change the impact rather than just selling pencils or whatever. We need to start selling other things as well, pencil cases or whatever, to go with that, just to expand the business so we can cross sell and upsell and do whatever we need to be doing. But going in line with the latest trends, the latest statistics, the latest data research, and how we can get more educated in the marketplace.
Absolutely. I think that was a mouthful of a session, Jason.
It was, yeah. I think we're going to have to pull the transcript out on that one and dissect it and put it into different contexts behind that. So that's a fascinating discussion. I really enjoyed that. I think we can carry on with this because there's so much more to this to make an impact and partake in both of our experiences here within this area, because there's lots and lots more juicy golden nuggets around this.
Brilliant. No, it was fantastic.
So one last piece of advice before we leave, some golden nuggets. Yeah. Shay, what would you like to leave with?
Just referring back to what I said earlier, train them before you blame them.
Like it. Love it. Oh, there's so many things I could possibly say. I'm going to say just one thing before I get carried away. Find the right talent first before you invest into them. I'm going to leave it as that because there's too many other areas I can go off on a tangent. But thanks a lot, Shay. Another awesome Jason. Chat on the SOS and System Size to Sales. We'll see you next week.